There is a great Facebook page. It's not owned by us. It's not run by us. It's just a customer that started the Norvise tires page. So it's a and it's not solely Norvise tires, but it is. There's I think 1,300 members there. Our ambassadors are on that page all the time, and they can answer questions on our behalf.
That was Tim O'Neill sharing another great fly tying resource to check out today. The Rotary Fly Tying Vise, today on the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today.
Hey, how's it going today? Thanks for stopping by the Fly Fishing Show. I want to give a quick shout out to our member-supported group. If you go to wetflyswing.com/members, you can check out the group and connect with people there and see what's going on. We got some trips coming up and some good stuff there. So take this podcast a little bit deeper if you get a chance today. Tim O'Neill, the main guy running the Norvise show, is our special guest today. We hear the story of how Tim became the main guy at Norvise, what makes the Vise unique compared to other Vises, and why there aren't more of these fully rotary Vises out. We kind of dig into a lot on that. Before we get started, let's hear from our sponsors. Sawyer offers a full line of modern and traditional products for oarsmen, canoeists, kayakers, and paddlers from all genres, providing unsurpassed function, performance, and beauty. Head over to wetflyswing.com/Sawyer to grab your set today. That's Sawyer, Sawyer, to get started right now. Turtlebox is the loudest, truly portable, waterproof Bluetooth speaker available. We believe in respecting the peace and beauty while on the water, but listening to great tunes before or after can be amazing. Why not fire up this podcast or a little music after a big day on the water? Head over to wetflyswing.com/turtlebox to get started today. So let's just jump into this without further ado. Here is Tim O'Neill from norvise.com. How's it going, Tim?
I'm doing fine, Dave. How are you?
Good. Good to have you on here. We're going to dig into a little bit on the Norvise story, and how you came to be tying and doing some live demos and stuff like that. Before we get into all that, just take us back to kind of how you first got into fly fishing.
It was weird, actually. Even to this day, nobody in my family, with the exception of my son, fly fishes. And when I was, I don't know, about 13, 14 or so, there was this little mom and pop kind of outdoor store that was within walking distance of my parents' house. And every night after dinner, I would go over to this store. It was a hunting and a fishing and just a cool, little outdoor store. And I would hang out there, just hang out in the store, because, I thought it was cool. And that's what we did back then. And it got to the point to where, this kid kept coming in and coming in and coming in. So finally they had no choice, but they gave me a job. So I started taking out the trash and started helping unloading trucks and, that kind of stuff. And I wound up working there for about 10 years, probably.
Oh, wow.
And what started it for me back in the day, now this is going back to VCRs and VHS cassettes and so forth. 3M did an outdoor series of videos, and there was elk hunting and antelope hunting and archery and this. Well, they had a series on fly fishing, and when I started watching those videos and I started watching the cast and the loop kind of roll out of the top of the rod, and I was just kind of like enamored by it, and I thought, man, this is the coolest thing in the world. So I started when I was, I don't know, mid to late teens, and kind of got away from it. I got really, really heavy into archery for a while. And then I kind of got back to it in my, say, mid-20s or so, and it's been ever since. So I'm 50 now, so I've been doing it for, about 45 years.
Oh, wow.
So that's how it got started.
What was the name of that shop, and where was that?
It was called Dean's Place. And it was in the town that I still live in. It's called Hockessin, Delaware. So we're about 45 minutes south of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
So if you look on a map, Delaware has that arch at the top, right where Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Maryland come together. That little corner right there. That's where we are.
Oh, wow.
And it's a shame because I was actually just there this morning. The building is still there, and it's a Dunkin' Donuts now. So
Oh, wow.
It's where I get my coffee every morning.
The same place. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yep, same store. It was the outdoor store. Then it was a UPS store for several years, and then it's been a Dunkin' Donuts for probably coming up on 15, 20 years now.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. Okay, so Dean's Place, and that's awesome. Yeah, so we won't get into all the coffee talk.
Yeah.
Although coffee, we've got a sponsor that's a coffee company, which has been pretty cool. But well, let's just jump into. I want to focus on a little bit today on the rotary vise. Obviously, Norvise is one of the unique vices out there. Maybe we'll just talk about a little bit of. We'll get into some tying tips as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, for the rotary vise, for somebody who has never heard or doesn't know anything about a rotary vise, because there's lots of vices that rotate, right? Yours obviously is a little bit different. Describe the difference between the rotary vise and a non-rotary vise.
Okay, so a non-rotary vise, or what I call a static hooked vise, would be something similar to like the old Thompson Model A, which if you're a fly fisher and a fly tyer and you're over the age of 40, you probably started on the Thompson Model A or a version of the Model A, it was basically a hook holder. You would put the hook in the vise, you would tie the fly, you would take the hook out of the vise, the hook would never move, and you basically had one view of the fly as you were tying it. And from there, we evolved to the rotary vices, which the design of the rotary vices would put the shank of the hook kind of on a center line, and you can slowly rotate the hook 360 degrees. And these were great for, if for nothing else, just being able to look at the other side of the vise, or the other side of the fly rather. You could turn the vise and look at the other side, and you could use it for wrapping, like, hackle and chenille bodies and things like that. And a lot of those designs are still in play today. Now you take that one step further and you come to the Norvise, and where the design of our vise, where we differ from, a rotary vise, our vise, you can spin the hook on center. Okay. And there's a big difference between slowly rotating the hook 360 degrees and being able to spin the hook on center with a version of some velocity. And we can do everything that a rotary vise can do, but we can do a lot more. And if you've ever seen us do things like the way we do the dubbing on a Norvise, or the way that we reinforce peacock herl or hackle feathers or things like that, you simply can't do on any other vise, especially the dubbing. You can't get the RPM that you need to spin the dubbing onto the thread the way that we do. And it opens up a lot of opportunities for us. First of all, you're not hand over hand wrapping any material. And what happens when you do that, every time you switch hands, you change the tension on the material. And I'm not knocking it. People have been tying flies that way for hundreds of years, and it works, and it will continue to work. With our vise, you basically, when you're wrapping a material, you hold it in your hand, you set your tension one time, you spin the hook, and you have consistent tension on your body or on your hackle or your flash or whatever it is that you're twisting. And it gives you, in my opinion, a better fly because you get consistent tension. It gives you a more durable fly, and you inherently, because of the design of the product, will tie your flies faster.
Yeah. Okay. So, and again, back to the benefits for this thing, it's, there's some speed, but would you say the benefits are a cleaner fly? Is that more, what is the biggest benefit of this over?
Well, our catchphrase is tie better flies faster. Okay. And I don't really promote speed when we're tying, or when I'm demoing, but because of the inherent things that the design opens up for you, if you were to sit down and tie, say, a dozen woolly buggers on a Thompson Model A, and then you were to tie a dozen woolly buggers on a Rotary vise, and then you were to tie a dozen buggers on the Norvise, probably all of the flies would fish. All of them would be, very well tied. The Norvise, you're going to get in and out of your vise faster just because it is inherently, in our opinion, a better design, and it's a better way to apply materials onto your hook.
Gotcha. Okay. And why do you think, just looking, I mean, I know you've been around, the Norvise has been around for a while. Why aren't there more of the Norvise style? I mean, there must be some copycats and things like that, but why are they? I mean, it seems like still it's 95% just your traditional, right? The Regals that aren't your true rotaries. Well, why do you think there aren't more of these out there? Even though people love them, right? I mean, you hear a lot about people loving the Vise.
Yeah, we have a cult following, if you will. We definitely don't sell the amount of vices as, a Regal or Renzetti. And I have no problem saying their names. They're great companies. They make a great product. We are friends with the owners of both companies. I think it is, fly fishing and fly tying. There's a lot of, for lack of a better term, old school mentality. And when people see our product for the first time, there's definitely some shock factor to it because it looks very different than any other vise that's out there on the market. It doesn't look like a Regal. It doesn't look like a Renzetti or a Dynaking or anything like that. So there's kind of that, I don't know if I'm going to like this because it's not what I'm used to seeing kind of thing. And I just, to answer your question, I don't know why there aren't more that do what our vise does. The previous owner, he did have a patent on it, and that may have deterred some people. But there's a lot involved in making these things too, and it's a bit more than just a dog leg with a set of jaws on it. So there's a fair amount of engineering, and there's so it's not just cut and dried. Hey, let's go make a vise that spins the hook. It's just not that easy.
Gotcha. Let's take it back. I always love to dig into a little bit on the history. And you mentioned Norm, because I remember Norm, seeing him at shows back in the day, the big guy, right? He was this up there tying. And what, do you know his story? Do you know how the actual Norvise, how that all started?
Yeah. I started working with Norm in about 2002, 2004-ish. And I had been machining parts for him right up until the time to where, myself and my son and my wife took over as the owners of the company. Norm he was an engineer, a mechanical engineer by trade. He was an avid fly fisher and an avid fly tyer. And he had this idea for a better way to tie flies. And it's, like you hear the term, build the better mousetrap kind of thing. Well, that's what he did. And he started in, the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And he had a small lathe and a small milling machine at his house. And he just started tinkering around with, he had the idea of being able to put the hook on center and being able to spin the vise. And then he just started tinkering around with, different ideas and how this thing would look and the parts that he would have to make and so forth and so on. And he started making vices and he was literally making them one at a time in his little shop, which was extremely inefficient, but it's part of the learning process. And it kind of grew from there to, where we are today, which, we're all of the products we do in a production machining environment. If I set up to do a run of vices now, I'll do 400 to 500 of each part. And it's literally the kind of the why didn't I think of that? You look at it and when you see it and you see what it does, you're like, oh my God, this is like the simplest idea in the world. Why didn't I think of it? But there's a lot more to it than that. And he probably has, I'm going to estimate, about 8 to 10 years of trial and error and, try this, make a few, put them out to the public. Okay, we like this, we don't like this, tweak it, make a few more. So he started tinkering in the early 80s. I believe he incorporated in like 92. And then he ran the business basically by himself up until we took over in 2018.
Oh wow, 2018. Yeah, so you just
Yep.
took over a couple years ago.
Yeah, we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary. So
Gotcha. What's Norm's last name?
Norlander. So
Oh yeah,
that's
Norlander. That's
where
right.
the name comes from. Norvise. It was Norm Norlander.
Norlander. That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So that gives us a little background on the story there. So basically, yeah, I mean, you've taken over. You're probably going on whatever 2-3 years here. I mean, how has it been? What's it been like taking over? Norvise.
It was. It's been great overall. It's been great. It's a lot of work. I will tell you that. We work. It's because I still do the machining career. I still have that, which I go and I work at the shop for 8-9 hours a day. Then I come home and I work in the Norvise office till probably 10 o'clock at night. So it's 14-16 hours a day, every day. My son, he does all of the assembly. So he's here every day working on parts. My wife does all the packing and shipping. So it's basically, 2 full-time jobs. And it's not a complaint by any stretch of the imagination. It's a lot. In the beginning, it was tough because Norm unfortunately passed away about a month after we took over.
Oh wow.
So, as we're going through and, where do we buy this part from, or where do we buy this from? Or, it's not like I could call him and go, hey, Norm, I need some help here. What do I do? Because he was unfortunately, he wasn't with us anymore. So the first year was challenging. I think we're past that at this point. I mean, we've flipped the inventory several times over. So I kind of know where to get everything and, who we deal with and where we buy this part from and where we buy that part from.
Wow.
So,
God,
yeah,
he must have known. I mean, like if something like that happens, he must have. I mean, how long was the process of buying it? I mean,
it was very, very quick and easy. I had been working with Norm since 2002, and I've been doing most of the machine of most of the parts. So we had a relationship. We had a fabulous relationship. And in and around 2016 or so, his wife became ill first, and it got to the point to where he didn't want to travel. Now he was based in Washington State.
Oh, right.
And we're in Delaware, so he didn't want to travel to the East Coast anymore because if you've ever done it, it's a pain, and we love doing the shows and I'm bummed that we didn't get to do any shows this year, but it's a lot of work and it's a lot of travel. It's a lot of airports. It's a lot of rental cars. It's a lot of stress. And he just got to the point where he just didn't want to do it anymore. So my son and I own another company, O'Neill's Fly Fishing. And we were using that as a springboard to whatever was going to be our next move in the industry. And we started repping for him out here on the East Coast. So we did all of the shows from Boston down to Atlanta, and then we went as far west as the big show in Detroit. So, Norm and I had a working relationship that at that point had spanned close to 15 years. And when it came time, when unfortunately Norm got his diagnosis that he ultimately passed away from brain cancer, all of his personal finances and his personal stuff were well taken care of. And the business side of things, he wanted the business to continue in the manner that he had built it. And he picked me, and I flew out there. And over the course of about 3 days, we sat at his kitchen table. We hammered out the terms of the deal, and I packed up the entire Norvise shop that was out in Washington, and we shipped it out here to Delaware.
Wow!
So it was a fairly easy process to do it. It was kind of sad because we knew why we were doing it. Because he had received a diagnosis. He was stage 4 and he was terminal. So it was
Gotcha.
literally a matter of time. So it's kind of bittersweet. It's like the biggest opportunity in my life, but it comes with the fact of knowing that, a person that was a huge part of my life and a mentor and a friend, unfortunately, was not going to be with us much longer.
Gotcha. And what were you doing at the time before you took over?
I was doing I was running the machine shop,
Yep.
which my machining career we're coming up on, I don't know, 32 years now.
Yeah.
On O'Neill's Fly Fishing, I was doing some production fly tying. We were doing seminar speaking, a little bit of guiding, presentations, club presentations and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I had managed Delaware's only full service fly shop from 2009 to 2014. And when I left the shop, I wanted to stay in the industry, but I wasn't quite sure, what I wanted to do, but I know I wanted to stay in the industry. So really kind of hanging out and waiting for the next opportunity. And fortunately for us, the next opportunity was Norvise.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. So that gives us a little background on the story. And, for anybody that hasn't heard of, doesn't know Norm or that story, I'm glad you touched on that. Maybe we could take it to, we're going into a little bit of a nymph fishing season. Maybe you could talk about, I know you tie some flies as far as a nymph, and talk about how putting that in the Norvise and just describe how that works. Do you have a pattern that we can kind of think about here or something that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Probably one of my favorites, and one that is on, if I'm nymphing, particularly for trout, that's on my rig probably 80% of the time, is a Frenchie.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very simple, very quick pattern to tie. And it's typically a pheasant body with a wire rib, and then a little collar of typically bright orange dubbing. So when you think about it, 90% of what we do in the world of fly tying, you are wrapping a material around the shank of the hook. So if you're laying down a thread base, if you're wrapping a hackle, or if you're wrapping a body, or what have you. So take that particular pattern, you would put the hook in the vise. We have a variety of different jaws that you could use. I believe we have 4 different jaw systems now. I would probably tie this one in our new inline fine point jaw, because it gives a little bit of access to the bend of the hook. Put the hook in the vise. Typically, I would tie my wire in for my rib. I would tie in the pheasant tail, or the pheasant tail, using the tips as the tail.
Yep.
And then I will take, typically with a pair of hackle pliers, I would twist the pheasant tail. Now on a standard vise, you would hand over hand wrap that body material. So every time you go over the hook, you would pass the material from typically your right hand to your left hand. And then you would bring your left hand up. And then when you get to 12 o'clock, you would pass it from your left to your right. Well, everybody has, there's, as you're tying flies, there's 100 things that can go wrong. People they'll get to the end and they'll drop it, right? So then the whole body unwinds. They put too much pressure on it when they're switching hands and they break the pheasant tail. They can put too much pressure, have it roll around the shank of the hook. So with the Norvise, we would tie the tail in with the tips facing out of the back, and that would be the tail of our nymph. I would twist the pheasant tail. I would hold my hand stationary, and then you just take and you spin the hook. And as you're spinning the hook, you move the body material up the body of the fly. So most of what we do, we're wrapping over the shank of the hook. So when you do your thread base, you wrap over, or a hackle or a chenille body will go over. So if you're looking at the front of the vise, if you want your material to wrap over the shank of the hook, you will turn the vise towards you, or counterclockwise. Okay. So I would walk that body material up to within a very close proximity to the bead on the hook. I would tie it off with my thread. Then with the wire, you want to counter wrap it so that it crosses the body material, because it makes a stronger fly. So this is a scenario where you would want to wrap under the hook. So you want to wrap in the opposite direction that the body material went. So you would rotate the fly or rotate the vise away from you, or if you're looking at the vise clockwise. So if you want to wrap over the shank of the hook, you turn it towards you or counterclockwise. If you want to wrap under the shank, you would go away from you or clockwise. I would walk the rib up the body of the fly. I would tie it off. I would hang the auto bobbin on the cradle, and I would spin just a small amount of, typically I would use Senyo's laser dub in hot orange, and wrap that on and whip finish, and you're done. And a simple Frenchie like that, it took 3 times as long for me to talk about it than it would to tie it if I was just tying them.
That's right.
You could, if you're set up in a production, scenario where you're tying, or you've got your hooks pre-beaded and you got all your materials laid out, you could tie a Frenchie, a fishable Frenchie, when you get proficient with the system, in about 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Nice.
It's literally, it's that fast.
That's cool.
Perdigones, I fish a lot of those. So they're usually very simple thread body flies with a bead on them. There's not a lot of material to them. A lot of the new light cured acrylics like solarez, which we're very fond of. When you get to the point of doing that, you can put your dab of solarez on there. You can use the vise, and you can spin the vise to kind of distribute the material evenly around the body of the fly. And then while the vise is still spinning, just hit it with the light and take it out, and there your perdigone is finished.
Oh, there you go.
You can do perdigones in literally about 30 seconds.
Perfect.
I mean, it's unreal how quick you can burn flies out with this thing.
Nice. I want to talk about the auto bobbin and some of the other benefits here. But have you seen what other unique vices are out there other than Norvise? Is there anything else that's even close? I mean,
there's honestly, there's not really anything that is our product. We tout it as the most innovative fly tying system on the market. And when you get the vise and all the different jaws working, and the tube fly attachment and the auto bobbin and some of the dubbing brush table that we make, you can spin dubbing brushes up with the vise. There is nothing in the world of fly tying or fly design that you cannot do with the system. And we've got a lifetime warranty on all of our parts and pieces. If you break a part, we're going to replace it. Now, if you break the same part 5 times, we're going to have a talk about that, but we're still going to replace it. We do things, I think, a bit differently in the way that we tie flies and in the way that we run the company. Our goal is to have happy people tying flies, and having a customer that is upset with us really does us no good. So we're centered really around customer service. We're centered around the unique design of the vise and the things that we can do with it. Like I've said earlier, that quite frankly, and I don't mean any disrespect to any of the other vise companies, but you just can't do what you can do on our vise on another product. It's physically impossible.
And you can't do, and what you're talking about there specifically is the fact that when you're wrapping with a typical traditional vise, your tension's changing a little bit, mm-hmm. and things like that. But with your vise, you get a solid, I mean, it's probably would you say a more evenly distributed fly, better looking fly? Absolutely.
I would say definitely a more consistent fly, because you're going to have consistent tension on your materials. Efficiency is a great word. Like I said, I don't really tout the speed in fly tying. That's not my selling point when I have a guy, across the counter or that I'm talking to on the phone. It's not like, oh, you're going to tie all your flies faster. You will, but it's just a byproduct of the design. And we kind of get pigeonholed into it's a production fly tyer's vise. And I understand that. And I get where people are coming from when they say that, but it's a vise for everybody. And we did a promotion year before last, because we didn't have shows last year. And if you at any of the shows if you bought a system from us, which would be a full setup. I asked everybody to give me 3 months because there is definitely a learning curve involved in it. But give me 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, if you call me back and you say, look, this thing just isn't for me, I can't get it, I'll buy it back from you. I'll give you what you paid for it. You basically can test drive this thing risk free. And at the end of the 2019 show season, I have no idea how many Vices we sold during the show season. I bought one Vice back.
Yeah.
So it's really when you get on it and you get tying on it and you see what you can do, the light bulb kind of goes off. And I can't tell you, how many people are, oh my God, why did I wait so long to do this? I should have bought one 20 years ago. This is the best Vice I've ever owned. My tying is increased and we get all these, all this positive feedback. And it's great because it does all the things that the guys are learning that it does.
What did the guy that returned, the one guy that returned, what did he have to say?
Honestly, when he sent the package back, I could tell by looking at the Vice and the bobbin. I don't think he ever used it.
No, he didn't.
I don't think he ever put it together.
He didn't like the way it looked. So what about now? We've had you mentioned Greg Senyo. He's been on the podcast in the past, and I was just watching some videos. Tim Cammissa, who's also in our group, our Thursday night group, and Kelly Galloup has been on the podcast. These guys are, big name, big YouTubers. I'm not sure what they use. I don't think it's a Norvise, but who are some other? Are there any like big namers you could go out on YouTube and see using the Norvise right now? Or
you can go to if you go to the website and you click on the video tab that's up at the top of the page, all of the original videos that Norm shot with the Vice are up there. And there's about 60 of them up there right now. So you can see, the introduction to the Vice and the introduction to the fly tying bobbin. And, just basically, this is our travel kit. And then it gets into some time videos where he does, just some phenomenal things with the Vice. And those videos are going to stay up there. I mean, forever. He's the guy that thought about this. And that's kind of my, honoring his memory, so to speak. Then if you go to the new Norvise YouTube page, there's about 100 videos up there. And basically what we do a live fly tying Facebook feed every Sunday. And it's typically an hour to maybe a little bit longer, depending on who's tying and what fly they're tying. Those Facebook Live videos are downloaded and they're put up on the YouTube page the next day. And then we do what's called Fly Tying Thursday, where it will be a shorter, maybe a 15-minute video of, this is me tying a shad fly, or this is somebody tying a pheasant tail nymph or something like that. As far as big names, we don't have, I don't have a Blaine Chocolate or a Bob Popovich or a Kelly Galloup on staff. We do have a pro tyers staff. To be honest with you, probably our biggest, most popular name is Braiden Biller, who is a 15-year-old fly tying phenom. And he's, he does a lot of shows with us. He does some shows on his own. He's been on the cover of a couple of magazines. He is, in my opinion, he's going to be the next Popovich or Blaine Chocolate or whatever, name you want to put on it. Our ambassador and our pro staff, I'm not really looking for, the big name people. Now, don't get me wrong. If Blaine Chocolate rings my phone up and says, "Hey, I want to tie on the Norvise," he's going to have a Norvise very quickly. But we're more so looking for. I want to promote the regular guy who is a fantastic fly tyer that not a lot of people know about. So if you look on our ambassador page or our team Norvise page, most of the people you have probably never heard of before. But when you start looking at the flies that they tie and the things that they do, for instance, we have a gentleman by the name of Grant Alvis on our staff. He is arguably one of the biggest authorities on snakehead fishing in the Virginia area, right? So people are like, what are snakehead? Well, if you've never caught or never fished for snakehead, once you catch one, you'll kick a stone at all your trout gear. You won't want to fish for trout anymore. So, we have that, and we have, people strategically placed around the country where we give you a variety of different exposures to different types of fishing, different types of patterns, and so forth. And it's a recipe that's been very successful for us.
Perfect. Who is your? Well, let's dig in really quickly on the cost, just so we know what we're looking at here. And Vise is obviously range from, I don't know. You probably should be, if you're looking to buy a Vise, probably at least $100 to get something. I mean, I'm not even sure if there's anything under 100 that's super high quality. But I mean, what are we looking at to get this thing? If somebody's like thinking this sounds good to them, and they want to get the whole package, do they need to buy the whole kit, or is it just the Vise, or what do they need?
No, they don't. The way that we have engineered everything, it's all modular. So you don't have to buy everything at one point right from the get-go. You can start with the Vise, and then you can add to it as your tying needs change, or as your skill level increases, and all the parts and pieces go together. So we actually just had a guy within the last couple of months. He started buying like one accessory a week.
Yeah.
And the last thing that he bought was the Vise. So he had all of the accessories first before he actually had the actual Vise to tie on it. That's the way that he chose to do it. We basically, we have one model of Vise. And I'm not going to do this is our entry level Vise. This is our mid level Vise. This is that. I don't believe in that. I believe in you buy once, you make an investment that's going to last you a lifetime, and you're happy with it. So we do have 3 different versions of the same Vise. So our standard Vise is going to be the black anodized body, and it's going to have the brass hardware on it. So the front hub, the rear hub, the friction nut, and the thread post top are brass. That one sells for $395. Then we get into the legacy Vise, which is going to be a black body, and the hardware is stainless steel. So the front and rear hub, friction nut, and thread post top are made out of 303 stainless steel. That model goes for $500. And then our third version is the Legacy C, which are the colored Vises that we just unveiled actually on Thanksgiving Day. So we have 5 colors. We have Radical Red, Liberty Blue, Shamrock Green, Sunset Orange, and Royal Purple. And they have the stainless hardware on them, and they sell for $550. Internally, all 3 Vises are identical.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're getting, this one is better than this one or that. They are all the same Vise internally. It's just the different options for aesthetics, and the brass. It will tarnish after a while. There's nothing you can do. Brass is going to tarnish, and brass is going to patina. There is nothing you can do about it. Mm-hmm. For some people, that is a problem, and I understand that. That's why we came out with the stainless steel version. The stainless steel, in 20 years, these parts will look exactly the way they do the day that I machine them. They will not change color. So that's kind of the differences. And then, of course, the colored Vises. The purple, I mean, I can't keep the purple ones in stock. Everybody loves the purple. So it's just a thing of, hey, I like purple, so I'm going to buy a purple Vise.
Perfect. Well, let's take it out. Let's take us out of here with the 222, which is the top 2 tips, top 2 flies, top 2 resources. And, we mentioned nymphs at the start. Maybe we just start there and keep it on the fly tying. So, first of all, what's your home? So up in Delaware, what would you say is your, you don't have to tell any secrets, but what would be your home water up there?
Our home water and our go-to fish here in the northern part of the state is going to be smallmouth. The trout fishing in Delaware is basically non-existent. We have one put and take river, and you're fishing over stocked fish, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if I'm going to fish for trout, I'm going to prefer to fish over wild fish. So our trout game is kind of lacking. That being said, I can be in Central PA, which is arguably the best trout fishing in the world, in about 2.5 hours.
Oh, right. You're right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But our go-to in the northern part of the state is going to be smallmouth. Our home river is the Brandywine River. So if you're familiar with any of the Civil War history, the Battle of the Brandywine and so forth, that's where all of this stuff happened. And
Gotcha.
it's a blue ribbon smallmouth river. It is definitely a warm water fishery. Does not fish well when it's cold, but that's our go-to. Down in the lower part of the state. Now, granted, when I'm talking the upper and the lower, you can get from the top of Delaware to the bottom of Delaware in an hour and 45 minutes.
Nice.
Literally an hour and 45 minutes. In the lower part of the state, we have it's littered with ponds and lakes that are full of largemouth bass and chain pickerel, which they're a cousin to the northern pike and a muskie. They're great fun on the fly rod, and we spend a lot of time chasing those. And then we also have a lot of opportunity in the saltwater for striper and flounder, sea trout, and bluefish. So where we lack in the trout fishing, we make up for it in diversity of some of the other species, and we chase them all. And I could be tying a size 20 zebra midge, and the next week I could be tying a 6-inch long shad or herring fly to go chase stripers. And with the system and the interchangeable jaws, we can do all of that very, very easily.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. So that's and then you do some nymph fishing there?
Yeah. We most of my trout fishing is nymphing. I love the nymphing game, whether it's tight line Euro style, under an indicator, or dry dropper. I honestly, I would rather fish nymphs than dry flies. Yeah. And now, all your listeners' heads are just going to explode when I said that, but no. it's what we do.
I think that's the most, yeah.
It's how we learned how to fish. And I really like putting the puzzles together. So, the Frenchie that I mentioned earlier is a go-to. The Rainbow Warrior is a go-to. Hare's ears, pheasant tails, Waltz worms,
yep.
Stone flies, a couple different stone fly patterns that we tie. So
that's right.
Yeah, we run the full gamut of it for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that I'd say a majority of people probably nymph fish. I don't know if I'm totally right on that, but I had Red's Fly Shop on a while back, and he was noting how it was kind of funny. He noted how you start out. He would love you start out nymphing or doing whatever, but eventually when you become a great dry fly fisherman, he's like, okay, that's when I know I'm there, and I'm definitely not there at all. But it's kind of a thing for me. I'm thinking like, well, I love nymphing, I love it too, but I would love to get better. I mean, I guess I would love to get better at everything, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not there on the dry fly game, and the reason being is because where I live, we don't have. That's part of the reason why the trout fishing is not great, because Delaware,
not good hatches.
The soil it's a clay based soil, so the rivers get hot early and they stay hot for a long time. So we don't get the bug life here that we get out, say in Central PA, or even say halfway between here and Central PA. And I'm not saying that you can't go out and catch a trout on a dry fly in Delaware, because you can, but it's the exception rather than the norm, or at least from my point of view. So we spent our time, we grew up learning how to nymph. That's how we caught fish, and that's kind of what you cut your teeth on. And it's kind of what I migrate to now. Now, if I walk up and there's a pod of rising fish, yeah, I will figure out what they're rising to. I will tie a dry fly on and I will catch them. But I'm not like the purist, so to speak. Like I would rather nymph and catch fish than fish a dry fly and not catch fish when they're not rising. If that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. So, and you mentioned a couple flies there. I think were those two the Waltz worm, or if you had to pick two for fishing today for nymphs, did you talk about?
Oh, I would. My nymph rig it's typically if I'm fishing PA, we can fish 3 flies, and I will typically fish 3 when I'm nymphing. The top fly will be tied off of a dropper tag, and it's typically a soft tackle. So depending on the time of year, right now we're coming into BWO time, so I would have a little olive soft tackle. Then in the middle, I would have a bigger fly like a Waltz worm, because you can hide a lot of weight underneath a Waltz worm,
Mm-hmm.
or a bigger stone fly, or even a green weenie, which is basically just an attractor. I'm not really figuring on catching fish on that particular fly. That's more of an attention getter.
Yep.
And then off of that, I will trail usually a Frenchie. And I will typically catch fish on either the soft tackle if they're up in the water column, or if they're down at the bottom, I'll stick them on the Frenchie. So that, a version of that rig is, it could be a hare's ear soft tackle. It could be a big hare's ear, in the middle for my anchor fly for the weight, and then a smaller hare's ear or a smaller pheasant tail trailed off of that. But that's kind of my basic setup.
Perfect. And what about tips? If we take it to fly tying, would you have a couple of fly tying tips for somebody, maybe if they're, I don't know, if they're maybe just starting to use your Vise or any kind of general stuff?
I would say, as good as YouTube and the videos and things on the internet are, I would definitely say, immerse yourself in that. But I would also caution you to be careful when watching YouTube videos. And the reason being, if you look at a lot of the videos, the title will say, how to tie, blah, blah, blah fly. And you think that it's an instructional video. Yeah. And when you get to watching it, it's not at all an instructional video. And it's more of the guy trying to show off his tying skills. And I think that is inherent of, if you've never really taught a fly tying class, it's hard to do instructional videos, because you take for granted that the people know, especially beginners, what you're doing. And you do one little thing with your thread and your thread tension, or something just that you think is obscure, or that doesn't really matter because you've been doing it for 20 years. Well, a beginner is watching it and they don't have a clue what you just did to make the material do what it's doing. And then they go to the Vise and they try to duplicate, and they're struggling. So I would definitely say, especially if you're starting out, don't be afraid to ask questions. I would look for a reputable fly shop or another entity that teaches live fly tying classes, because then you get immediate feedback, and you can tell the instructor, wait a minute, I don't know what you did there. I don't know. Can you go back and do it again? Because I'll do it myself when we're doing these live videos. The other day I went, and I'm like, okay, now we're going to whip finish. And I picked a whip finisher up and I spin. Like, I forget that there's people that have never whip finished before. So then, we had a question, hey, can you show the whip finish again? And then I picked it up and I did it very slowly and showed the people how to do it. So while I think a lot of the information that is out on the internet, as far as tying videos and stuff is good, I would just say, be careful and seek out live instruction, and seek out something where you can get immediate feedback.
That's right. That's good stuff. Okay. And let's just touch on the live stuff. So when are you, you guys are on Facebook, or how are you doing your live
Facebook
stuff?
It'll be on the Norvise Facebook page. We go live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's 7 p.m. my time zone. This week I happen to be on. I'm the one who's tying live this week. And I think, well, I got to figure it out, because we're going live tomorrow, but I think I'm going to do some type of intruder type shank fly. So
cool.
Kind of what I'm leaning towards, but I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what I'm going to tie 10 minutes before we're getting ready to go live, and I just pull a bunch of material off the hooks and start tying. So
cool. Well,
but I think I'm going to do something, because we're in the middle of spring steelhead season. We just got back. We were out last weekend, and we're here this weekend, and we're going out next weekend over Easter, which will probably be our last trip out to Erie to catch steelhead. So kind of got steelhead on the brain. So that's kind of what I'm tying right now.
Perfect. And what about as far as resources, kind of book, magazine, anything that comes to mind, video, like stuff that's not your own, where somebody might be able to take fly tying or kind of nymphing to the next step?
Let's see. As far as books go, George Daniels has a fantastic book. It's Dynamic Nymphing, I believe. Right. That is probably the best book on the subject that I have ever read. I've bought the book, I think 3 times because I keep loaning it to people and I don't get it back. So,
Nice.
and I'm funny, I'm looking at my bookshelf right now and I'm like, where's my copy of Dynamic Nymphing?
There you
I don't
go.
see it up there. Anything by Popovic's Pop Flies was groundbreaking. And then his latest one, Fly Design, is a good one. Rich Strolis, the Catching Shadows book is fantastic. There's a book that's called Modern Midges, and it's a very, very thick book with thousands of different midge patterns in it. That's a great one. Lauzer's book on how to tie all his flies, the Lauzer minnow and the variations and the crayfish and all that. These are really, really good books with really high quality pictures of step by step, how to do it. As far as YouTube goes, you mentioned earlier Tim Cammissa. His videos are just fantastic. Tim's a great guy, and he does a really, really good job with his page. Tim Flagler is another good one that what's he, Tightline Productions, I believe. He does a great job. Brian Wise, Fly Fishing the Ozarks. If you're into big, articulated meat streamers, he does a good job. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I'm kind of envious of people that are just now getting into fly tying, because when I started, none of this. I mean, the internet didn't exist when I started, so you learned how to tie a pattern, and you had to travel to a show or whatever to meet somebody to teach you how to tie another one, and now you can go on Info Overload, just in 5 minutes, type in pheasant tail in Google and look what pops up. I mean, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of different varieties. So that can be good and that can be bad, because you can get overwhelmed. So you got to you got to go at it, smartly and with a plan.
Exactly.
But there's so many good resources out there.
Those are great. Yeah. So and George, Rich, Brian, those they've all been on the podcast here. And and Popovic's and Lauzer and Flagler have not. So hopefully we'll get those guys on here.
Yeah, Tim's a good guy. Tim Flagler. Try to get him on. He's you get him talking. He's funny. We spent some time right across the aisle from him in the show out in San Francisco 2 years ago.
Oh yeah,
and he's a good guy. Yeah, he's a really good guy. He would be a good get for the show.
Cool. All right, I think Tim, I think we're there in the next 6 to 12 months. Anything new coming out? You want to give a shout out to either yourself or the business coming up here?
Yeah, we just released our 4th jaw style. It's a inline fine point jaw it was originally designed for holding shanks, for tying intruders, and the new the little micro shanks for tying the small game changers. And I made, I believe, 300 sets of them. And based on the sales of some of our other products, I figured that was going to last us about 6 to 8 months. We put them up on the website and they sold out in an hour, 15 minutes. Wow. So yeah, it's a good problem, but it's a problem because now I have people that want more, and I've got to get them, I got to get a machine and get them through the shop and get them packed and all that. So we just released that's our kind of, we were going to unveil that at IFTD in October last year, and of course the show was canceled. We were going to unveil that and the colored vices, so we held off. We unveiled the colored vices on Thanksgiving, and then we just dropped the shank jaws here about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
We've got some new stuff that we're working on. I've got a bunch of ideas of new products and then improvements to the current lineup. We're on our Gen 5 Vise, so the Vise has been through 5 different revisions. It doesn't really look different it still has the same basic look to it through the different generations, but we've made a lot of improvements internally in the Vise, so it spins better. It's a lot smoother than it was. So those are kind of our 3 big things that we did over the last year or so. I've got some stuff that I'm working on. I don't totally know which direction we're going to go with a new product for 2021. And that's kind of where we're at now. We're kind of figuring out what we're going to unveil at IFTD, and
That's right.
But we're kind of in a unique situation where we have the colored vices, we have the shank jaw, and although they've been unveiled and they're out in the public, we didn't do any shows this year. So none of those products have been to the shows yet. So it's kind of like, do we do another one, or do we just bring these out to the public so that people can see them? So I don't know where we're going to go with that yet. So we'll get it figured out.
Perfect. So cool. Well, I guess in norvise.com, we can send everybody out the best place if they want to connect with you.
Yeah, it's www.nor-vise.com. So nor-vise.com.
That's right.
And that's the website. And then we're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. I think those are the big three platforms that we use. Yeah. There is a great Facebook page that it's not owned by us. It's not run by us. It's just a customer that started the Norvise tires page.
Oh yeah.
So it's not solely Norvise. It's a group. Yeah, it's a Facebook group, and it's not solely Norvise tires, but it is. There's I think 1,300 members there.
Yeah.
It's a great way to, if you have a question, our ambassadors are on that page all the time, and they can answer questions on our behalf. I'm on it all the time. It is rare that you will put a question up there that you don't get some form of answer within about a half an hour. So it's a good resource.
Yeah.
And then we're actually finishing up the Norvise March Madness tying contest. So we're getting ready to go into the championship round. The voting on the Final Four is going to end here in a few hours.
Oh, wow.
So the two guys are, and I think it's going to be the same two guys that were in the championship round last year. So that's a fun thing that we've been doing. So yeah, there's plenty of resources out there to get in touch with us.
Nice. Yeah, that's fun. The March Madness, I guess I haven't been following the actual March Madness, who's up there, but do you have a team in the running?
In the basketball tournament?
Yeah.
Yeah, now I don't, believe it or not, as many sports as I played growing up, I was never a basketball guy.
Yeah,
I never was. But what we did, we took that basketball bracket system and we turned it into the same way that the basketball tournament works, the fly tying tournament works. And we drew names for we started with 64. We're down to 4, and each week I pull a different category, and they have to tie fly, send it in, we post the pictures, and then whoever has the most likes on Facebook after a 24-hour period, they move on to the next bracket.
There you go.
It's a fun thing. We're going to make some tweaks and changes to it next year.
Yeah. I was going to say, how do you keep people from, I guess it's like, getting biased with, like.
It is. And this is our second year of doing it. And people have definitely taken advantage of their social media following, which is fine. And I don't have any problem with that. But we do need to figure out a way to get back to the best high fly needs to advance, as opposed to the person who can rally likes on Facebook. So, it's kind of one of those things where you started out, and like I said, this is our second year doing it, and it works well. And then, it starts to morph into something that you don't really want it to be. So, and like I said, I had no problem with anything that has happened in the contest this year. There are 3 definite examples where a fly that was head and shoulders above the fly that it was competing against got knocked out because of stronger social media following. So we've got, and I've gotten messages and concerns from people. So it's just one of those things that we have to address as you grow, and we'll figure it out. And we'll
you're doing
back with it next year.
You're doing it. You're testing out. That's the only way you do it. You get it out there and you tweak it and make it better.
Yep.
Cool. All right, Tim. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time today and for all the work you're doing over there at Norvise. It's definitely inspiring to see you keeping the thing going strong, and love. It'll be fun to keep up with you, and hopefully we'll meet you in person maybe at IFTD this coming year.
Absolutely. They just released it. It's in Salt Lake City this year. Yeah, we just got that yesterday. So next week we're going to sign up and get our booth and all that. So yeah, definitely swing by and see us for sure.
So there you go. If you want to find the show notes, all the links we cover, just go to wetflyswing.com/214. If you get a chance, please head over to our members group, wetflyswing.com/members, and you can find out how to connect with people there and just take the community a little bit further. The cool thing about this is that, you're probably listening to this and not quite sure where you are. You might be in the Northwest, maybe the Midwest, maybe Texas, or maybe even Southeast. But the coolest way and the coolest thing I think about this is the fact that we're going to and we're continuing to connect people that are listening now with each other, so we can get out and do some, potentially some fishing trips, find new areas, just kind of take the, the group and what we have going here a little bit further with the podcast. So please head over there if you get a chance. That'd be amazing. That's pretty much all I got for you right now for today. I think next week we have Charles Jardine, I believe, is on. So stay tuned for that coming up on Tuesday. Should be good. So I'll let you get out of here. And if you are still listening to the back catalog, just click ahead and check out the next episode. I'm not even sure, where you're at if you've caught up on things. But I appreciate your support. Appreciate having you here and listening. So have a good one. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.